Hi, my name is Patrick and welcome to Shanty Shop Mechanic. On this week's episode, I'm going to be delving into this vintage Tecumseh lawnmower. It was a bit of an impulse buy and I had intentions of actually removing the engine and putting a Briggs or Honda into it. When doing so, I actually felt quite bad because it is vintage and it would be nice to see if I can get this thing up and running, despite me not particularly liking these engines all that much. It has been abandoned for about 5+ years, said by the owner I bought it off. And as you can see, it has a broken pull cord. So that is the first thing on the agenda that I need to get resolved if I'm going to get anywhere with this machine. So let's do it. Let's get it turning and burning. As an overview on this mower, it's actually in really good condition, especially with it being a plastic deck or plastic frame. As you can see, there's no chips or cracks on it, which is great. There's a few little wear marks, but nothing really is anything serious. A lot of these mowers that originally came to me would have like big cracks along them, especially around the sides here. But there's no actual proper damage on this machine. So I'll just give you another side along here. As you can see, it's equally as good on this side. So it's a bit of a rare machine. Usually tend to crack up and get thrown away. This is kind of this mower's fate until I saw it online, so I had to buy it. What I love about some of these old machines is that they usually have some quirky statement along the side of them, and with this Tecumseh it's no different, as it says here, this engine is designed to reduce exhaust gas pollution. And of course, this being a Tecumseh, this really means that it's probably not going to run. As mentioned in the intro, I'm going to dig into the recoil. Recoil is a major player as it will help me to know if it has compression and also if the engine has spark too. Now I know you can probably test the spark out, especially with this thing because it doesn't have an engine brake on it, by turning your hand over the blade whilst removing this, but I want to be able to know if it has spark too, so it just makes sense to be able to do that and then test both those things out. So I'll get cracking at that now. In the previous clip I was referring to a cable, and that cable was the spark plug one here. You remove this in order to safely turn over the engine by hand, especially when you're lifting the engine up to remove debris or heavy grass that would have caused the engine to stop. So what happens is if you leave this on, it has the potential to create a spark when you're turning the engine over using the blade, and it can kick over and it can get your hand or it can get feet or whatnot. So it's best practice to, if you need to look under the machine, doesn't matter if it hasn't run in 5 years or it hasn't run in 5 minutes. It's best to employ this practice all the time, so build that habit and you remain safe and there's no trips to the doctor. Okay, so this recoil assembly is held in by 4 10mm bolts and with 2 8mm bolts here holding up the tank. So through the power of editing, I'm going to get this off, and the next time you see me, this recoil assembly should be off, and we should be able to look into it a little bit deeper to see as to why the recoil is not retracting. Actually, you join me as I've removed the last bolt holding the recoil assembly on, and I've actually removed the fuel tank here, so it's just lying there. And in the heat of it all, I actually forgot to check the condition of the oil, so I'll probably do that right now. So if you just bear with me for 1 minute, I'm just going to... Probably should have did this prior, but the irony of not checking the oil to make sure that it actually runs. So as you can see there, yeah, that is, yeah, I mean, it's, where is it now, where's the max? Okay, it's actually on the line itself, but that oil is not great, so at least it's full. Hopefully not full of petrol. I'll give it, it's actually, yeah, no, it's fine. It's smell of oil, burnt oil, and no smell of petrol. Okay, you join me with the coil off the engine now, thankfully. As you can see, the flywheel, if I can just leave that up there, won't make any noise. You can see where the magneto is, and the coil, as I was referring to, in this little cable here as well. So when this spins around, this has a magnet, and when it comes in contact with the coil, it creates a bit of electricity and it flows down in here and then ultimately creates a spark for the spark plug. So I'm going to bring the recoil over to the bench now. I'm just going to take a further look into it. Welcome to the office. So on initial inspection of this recoil, I'm actually going to be changing the string. and this is actually standard operating procedure for me anyway, because it just prevents any issues arising in the future, whether a string snaps or something like that. And as you can see there, it's already beginning to fray. With this, this is a bit different than a normal recoil, where a normal recoil will have a bolt and you'll be able to undo it and then unravel this, and there'll be a big spring here as well which keeps tension, and when you pull it actually rotates, and then when you let go the spring brings it back. You can kind of see it happening there. So realistically speaking, I don't know if I have to take this apart, but I know that this is kind of wedged up in here, and this usually these teeth come out and they latch on to a little cup shaped thing on top of the engine or in the flywheel, and they grab onto it, which is what makes contact with the engine when you're trying to turn it over. So I don't know, I think I might need to get a flathead screwdriver, maybe hit it or something like that, because that one works, but this one's jammed up and it's actually pushing this up at the moment, and that's what I'd say that's most of our problem. Yeah, this recoil is not happy. I might have to, yeah, I might have to dig into this, might have to remove this. It's kind of like it's just a wedge. I just need to open that up a bit and then this should pop off, and hopefully all goodness lies inside. I believe I may have found out why this is so jammed up. So when you engage the handle or whatever, you pull the cord, this comes out. As I mentioned, the tooth comes out and it hits off. So this thing sticks out, goes into about here, and then there's like a little place for it to slot into. So the other one has come out of that slot, and by virtue of this is actually jammed up against this, and that's why it's pushing it out. So essentially what I need to do is take this part and then just put it back into the slot, and it should work. So I've slightly distorted this in order to find out what the actual issue is, and as you can see there, there's a little spring. If you just follow in here, okay, so there's a little spring in there, you can see him, and that's what holds this metal tooth in here. God, it's so difficult. And for whatever reason, it's managed to jump all the way over here when it's meant to be in here. So I need to remove that out and then put it back in and just massage this with a little bit of a hammer. Now, good news, I've actually got it to work now. So as you can see, both teeth have come out. There's a little bit more massaging I need to do, but essentially it does work and they do actually retract. And the reason why I have this in is I have the cord fully pulled out and I'm about to remove the pull cord and put a new one in. So I don't want to run into the issue of having to take this off, hopefully, if it snaps. Okay, so you join me at a random part of the shop, mainly because the sun is setting and it's messing with the camera. So have the complete assembly here for the recoil, and as I pull the lever, you can see the teeth pop out. And then when I retract or let go of the handle here, they actually go back in. So that works nice and reliably. As you can see, with a bit of inertia, they actually do swing out and then they do retract. So as a disclaimer, before the good people of YouTube come at me with pitchforks and axes, I would not recommend doing what I did with bending this metal plate over, which holds those teeth in place. Mainly because you can cause cracking and it can pretty much snap off, and then ultimately invalidating the whole purpose of trying to fix this. So as you can see here, if I bring it up closer, you can see this little circle here, and that's actually wedged out, kind of nearly like blossoms out against this washer, and that holds the whole assembly in place. So what you really need to do is need to crush that down to allow that washer to pop out, and then this whole assembly comes out. So also, with a lot of recoils, they all have springs, so this is ultimately spring loaded and it will shoot across the shop. So try and avoid that, and I tried doing it the wrong way, but it worked out. Calamity has happened once again in the form of the recoil binding. This is not exactly the first time this has happened, but I think what's happening is when I was setting this recoil back into place, I think it's a bit lopsided, so it's kind of binding onto or catching something. I don't think it's actually really something to do with the mechanism, but What I will do to ensure that it has more tension is take the string out and rotate it more, so there's more tension on the springs, so it can power through whatever kind of bump it's at. So upon taking part the recoil assembly off again, I found that the tooth that got lodged in the first place has gotten lodged in again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rock it with just one tooth. It'll be fine, it'll turn it over. Obviously there'll be a little bit more pressure on that one tooth by itself, but there's no real way of fixing this other than putting another recoil assembly onto it. Okay, so I've removed the faulty tooth that was on it, and it seems to do its job quite nicely. So I'll just demonstrate here. You can see it kind of retract as well, so it's able to do that. So it's able to retract perfectly. Now, so what I will be doing is testing for the spark. So just make note of this, which is the spark plug tester, and that will show the light up once I turn over the engine. Thankfully it has spark, and it seems to have good spark too. You can also see in the clip where I was trying to turn it over where the mower was kind of jumping, and that was because there was quite a good bit of compression in it, and I'm not quite sure if that's to do with the timing being out, because it seemed quite a lot for it. Shouldn't be like that at all. Or there could be oil in the cylinder either, because I did take the plug out and it was quite wet, so I think I'm fighting against that in the compression cycle. So what I'm really going to do is I'm going to take the plug out and leave it overnight, hopefully dry out. So it's not completely pitch black out here, so I will show you the carb and an interesting feature that it has. So as you can see here, there's a little tab, and there's a little spring in between that tab, and what you do is when the season is done for mowing, what you do is you press that up and to drain all the petrol out of it. So if you lift that up, oh my god, there's oil pouring out of that. Oh my god, look at that, that is terrible. As I was trying to explain before I had my little mini meltdown, this tab is used to drain all the petrol out. So as you can see, the fuel tank is up here, flows down all the way down into the bowl of the carb, and if petrol gets old, it breaks down and stuff like that. So it's best to store your machines without petrol in them for long periods of time. So what you do is you do this, and what's meant to come out of it is petrol and not oil. Disgusting oil, so that'll have to be dropped. I love how they give you this feature of being able to allow the petrol to pour out by pressing up on this tab, and then when you look up on the top of the air filter it says protect nature. Yeah, I'm not really sure what team they were on, but I don't think they were strictly playing on Team Nature. Let's drop this bowl and see what catastrophe pours out. It might be as bad as the BP oil spill or something. And also to disconnect the spark plug, despite it being attached to the spark plug tester. That's the best way to do it, because I just felt the blade and I was like, oh yeah, should have did that, Paddy. So don't mind me as I use the slowest tool on planet Earth to undo this bolt. So if I was somewhat proactive, I would probably get a towel so this doesn't just go everywhere. So down, and I can already see it leaking or dripping down as I have the bolt loosened. And okay, so that wasn't as dramatic as I was going to make it out to be. So let's give it a little tap of a spanner, loosen it up, break that seal that it's had for so many years, untouched. Come on. Oh yes, I remember, it's a Tecumseh. And what a Tecumseh means is that in order to remove the carb, you have to completely detach it from the exhaust, or not the exhaust, the yeah, you join me back on day 2 with this machine. I left it where I was about to drop the bowl, but I need to move this carb assembly aside so I can actually drop it. Right, okay, hopefully it should be able to push out now when I do this. I'll get this last bolt out. So let's see what happens. Oh god, right, okay, that's a good bit of force. Oh wow, okay, yeah. A lot of oil in this for whatever reason. As you can see. Quite a decent amount of oil, if you can see there. A lot of crud in it as well, so that needs to be cleaned out. I did a light cleanup of this. As you can see, there's still a little bit more crusty bits on the edges, but I'll remove that off camera. I can't really remember, but I do believe there is a main jet in this carb, and to remove one of them you have to use a flathead, and it has to be long enough to be able to go in and just be able to unscrew it out. I'll just try and see if anything fits in here. Obviously the best way to practice this is to remove the carb, but this is just as I said, a quick and dirty way. So it does actually have a main jet. Typically, sometimes they have the jets in the together onto the actual carb. Like the Briggs have that as well, but sometimes the Tecumseh engines I believe have it too, but this one not so much. Okay, so it's almost out. So should be able to come out by hand at this stage. Yes, okay, excellent. As you can see, there's a little bit of residue on it. There's a series of larger holes and smaller holes, and essentially what this does is this is what I unscrewed it from. That's why you need the flathead bit. The fuel comes up through that, so the bowl is here, be somewhere situated like this, and the fuel that's in the bowl gets sucked up in by the engine and comes through here, and it's atomized, so it's separated out the petrol, so it's not like lumpy going in, so it's atomized as more of a mist, and then it's taken in and it's a much far cleaner burn. What you can do is jet these out. A lot of two-stroke engines, people do that too to modify them, but if you were to jet this hole too big, the petrol wouldn't become atomized, and then it would run very rich, like it'd be a lot of black smoke. It wouldn't be running, it'd be very low idle, things like that. And if this hole is too small, it can cause the engine to surge. So that's what I'm going to be looking out for here, because if it doesn't run right because there's a blockage or there's a bit of dirt, it doesn't take very much for the dirt to mess with these things, especially with holes that size there. So this was perspective that you can see how small that jet or that hole is. So I'm going to get clean, put some WD-40 through it, and see the way the petrol would go through it. So there is a few little blockages in it, and I'm just going to clean them out off camera. I have the carb assembly put back together. I made sure to put it back correctly. The gasket for the intake here was in place, not torn or missing or whatever. I made sure that these springs and linkages are not binding or they're not kinked in any way that they shouldn't be, and they're freely moving. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some petrol in it. So with the fuel tank filled, I don't see any leaks appearing, and I know that it is reaching the bowl. As when I lift this, you can see it pouring out there, and it does create a seal, which is excellent. Code of practice here is I took off the air filter and I was presented with this horrible mess. You can see where the sponge has actually dried out and it's beginning to disintegrate really, and the only thing that's really keeping it alive on one side is the oil, and that's completely saturated in oil, and it's not meant to be like that at all. Definitely good practice before starting an engine, whether it is a car or anything like that, check the air filter, because you can drag this right into it. Okay, so we know that we got spark, we got good compression, and we got fuel to the bowl on the carb. So I have this on choke and I'm about ready to turn this thing over. However, dun, 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 look what has happened again. This recoil never fails to fail. So I found another recoil in the meantime. Hopefully this one will save the day and we can actually get this engine turning and burning. Okay, so before you judge me for having the spare engine on the toolkit, I wanted to bring your attention towards the air filter and what I was talking about. Broken up piece of air filter going into the mower. As you can see here, there's a perfectly shaped hole where the intake goes in, and actually if you can see to the side here, you can see that it's just breaking right up in my fingers, and it's actually following in here. So if I put my finger into where the intake is, I'm dragging out pieces of the filter, so that is no bueno. The recoil I have in my hand doesn't fit. Did I say at the beginning of the video that I hate working on Tecumsehs? Yeah, I think I did. So after that overly dramatic little episode, I'm actually just going to try and turn this thing over the way that I really don't want to do, and it's just wrapping this around around the top of the actual flywheel and giving it a good pull. And realistically, I'm going to skip to this thing actually turning and burning over by this way, because it's going to take me a couple of times, I can imagine. So do bear with me. Yeah, I'm actually very surprised it started off one pull and the oil cap blew off and oil has gone everywhere. So that's pretty much a nutshell of what I think of Tecumseh. Obviously, I've been very dramatic, but there are a few reasons as to why I avoid working on these engines. I did get a turn and burning, so thank you very much for sticking through if you have. And if there's any learnings from this, number one, don't work on Tecumsehs. Number two, don't do bodge jobs. Do it right, do it once, and don't do what I did right here. It's purely entertainment, and that's it. Without further ado, thank you very much, and if you enjoyed, let me know. What a mess. Bye.